Hi, and welcome to Mikey's Moments, a Life Adventure, Episode 2. Uh, this time topic is going to be movies again, and as I said in my original podcast and on my YouTube channel, basically whatever I talk about is going to whatever in this thick head at the time. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you haven't listened to the podcast, please do. If you haven't watched the YouTube video, please do. Um, First thing first, if you're watching this on YouTube, and you will see my moniker is Zod1703. Someone asked me how I came up with that. Well, to be honest, it goes back to when gamer tags were first being used for like Xbox and PlayStation. So I wanted something to say, hey, I'm powerful. So I went with Zod, the great Superman villain, General Zod, because I wanted people in video games to kneel before me. And then I love Star Trek, and I love Captain James T. Kirk, and I figured if you're going to be a leader, you might as well be the best around. So I tried to get Zod 1701. It was taken. And then I tried to get Zod 1702, and it was taken. So that means there was two people before me that had the same idea. So I guess I'm not as original as I'd hoped. But that answers that question, and thanks for asking it. Now what I'm going to talk about is movies. And the reason I'm going to talk about movies is because, well, I love them. And it just so happens that Avatar 2 came out. Now, I am not a fan of the first Avatar. And anyone who really knows me knows this for several reasons. Visually, it was stunning. The CGI, or Computer Generated Imagery, was amazing. But the story was pretty lame. It was Fern Gully meets Dances with Wolves. And it was weak. And the film really hasn't lived up well. I think that's why, since the sequel came out, it went below expectations at the box office. Because one, the story hasn't really, as I said, it was weak and it didn't really survive. And without a good story, a movie doesn't survive over time. So that's what I'm talking about today is the CGI. CGI can be amazing. CGI can add to a movie, but I also think CGI can distract from the movie greatly, especially when it's overused. I think a perfect example of this, in my opinion, is Iron Man 3. I think it's the weakest of the Iron Man installments, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because there's so much CGI with the Iron Man suits that you kind of get lost. Now, don't get me wrong, the CGI is done well, but it's just too much of it. It overloads. And you've got these characters you care about, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you get into the depth of the story, then you don't need so much CGI. And I think that might be what some of these bigger Hollywood directors are upset about when they say that the MCU isn't filmmaking, that it's just popcorn graphics. It's because they're focusing on the visuals and not on the story. And some of the MCU stories have been weak. I'm not going to say they're all been perfect. But over time, you've come to care about these characters. There's depth to the characters. The story continues and builds their arc. Tony Stark goes from the Merchant of Death to the guy who sacrifices everything. So there's just one example. So, yes, I think the Hollywood directors are wrong in that aspect, but, they're entitled to their opinion, even though I think it's wrong. And that's just it. You need a deep story, and I think that's why Avatar 2 is failing. It's making money. People are going to it because, again, it's visually stunning. But if you're going to rely just on the visuals in your movies, what's going to happen is you might as well just go make a cartoon. Because that's what you're thinking is, oh, the visuals. But that's just it. CGI should be used as an enhancement. You should have practical effects. These effects should be enhanced by it. A good example is the first Jurassic Park. They was the first real film that had CGI characters, but they also had practical characters. They had a T-Rex that was a full-size robot T-Rex that they integrated with the computer graphics T-Rex. And that's what worked the best. And I'm telling you, that's where movies need to go. They need to have CGI characters when it's important. Good example I'm going to use is Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. Andy Serkis is an amazing actor, and he was able to put emotion, depth, feeling into this character, and then they caught all that motion, and then were able to superimpose the character computerly. They were able to take those graphics and blend them almost seamlessly to the point that you got to the point where you didn't realize Gollum wasn't a person. And that's where I think CGI needs to go. CGI needs to understand that if the character doesn't matter, the movie's not going to go. And for me, going back to Avatar, that's the problem. I didn't care about any of those characters. I didn't want to know what their story was. The bad guys were cookie cutter bad guys. The heroes were, well, for lack of a better word, just almost cardboard cutouts again. They just had no depth. They had no feeling. I didn't care if Jake survived or walked again. It didn't matter because, like I said, it was Dances with Wolves, which I had seen, which was done much better by Kevin Costner. Fern Gully, an amazing cartoon. But you put them together, they just don't work. Because Cameron, I believe, was worried too much about this is the technology. What can I do with it? And he, in an earlier movie, one of his earlier movies where CGI was still just in its infancy, and you all think I'm going to go with Terminator 2, and I'm not talking Terminator 2. What I'm talking is The Abyss. The water aliens were characters, and you had mystery and all this. The people on the ship you were worried about. There was depth, there was feeling, there was emotion. So you got taken into the moment. You got pulled out of where you were at and into that reality. And that's just it. That's what characters will do. If you go back through history and the different levels of the movie industry as it progresses, you had stop motion, and you had a lot of funny B movies with bad stop motion, but you had really good stop motion movies too, like Jason and the Argonauts. I mean, the sword fight with the skeletons was silly by today's standards, but back then was amazing. But part of the reason was you cared about the characters in the movie. And that's just it. Movies are temporal. That's why I love movies so much. I don't know if I really went into this or not, but I'm going to right now. Movies are temporal. You go, and I mentioned you go with a different audience, you see different things, and that's what I think Hollywood has gotten away from. They've forgotten that I will sit in a 3-hour movie if I care about the characters, and Endgame is a perfect example of that. I will sit in a 90-minute movie and love it if it's got good characters. I'll sit in a 2.5-hour movie. I'll sit in any movie if I care about the characters. I'll go to it 3 or 4 times if I care about the characters. But if I go in and the story is flat and you're just relying on the visuals, you got my money the first time, you're not getting it again. Or if I go in and the characters are good, but then you got poor CGI, which is a good example, is The Mummy, The Scorpion King. Loved that franchise, loved it, and I'm glad Brendan Fraser is making a comeback. I really appreciate him. He is a good actor, and kind of got lost in the Hollywood shuffle, as they say. But that's just it. I got taken out of that movie because the Scorpion King looked so ridiculous because they didn't know how to do the CGI at the time. And that's just it. Some movies, CGI could enhance them, but I don't think, like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I can't stand what George Lucas did when he went back and re-enhanced the originals. That was a mistake. What he did with the prequels, having a CGI character, that's great. And visually, he did something that no one had done before, and he should be applauded for that. Unfortunately, it was a terrible character no one really liked. So I guess what I'm saying is you've got to find balance. CGI needs to be balanced. Just like everything in life, you need balance. And that's just it. I want CGI to continue to grow. As the technology grows, it's going to get better. But we need more Andy Serkis CGI and less Avatar CGI. We need the computer graphics to be part of the movie, not the movie. And that's my opinion. And that's another one of my adventures. And that's, I guess, me venting maybe. But if you agree, leave a comment. If you just seeing this, go ahead and subscribe and follow. And I'm going to try to make this once a week. I've been working a lot of hours, so that's why this episode took a little longer. But I found some time, and here it is. And then I'm also thinking about doing some shorts, little quick things, whatever pops in my head. Maybe I can pop something out for a few minutes. So stay tuned. Exciting things coming. You never know. Maybe I'll get a guest someday. All right? Take care. And happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Joyous Kwanzaa. Be a pagan. Whatever you celebrate.